Teta teta nagarutse bazaniye uwanjye nyereka nzira naca nkurikira izo ntambwe tera ugenda nkusiganwa nyemerera intera intambwe untegereze ze tujyane ko nawe najya ntagufite uri uwanjye nanjye ndi uwawe ibiduhuza biruta ibidutajya nyemerera nyemerera uri uwanjye nanjye ndi uwawe.
The Honorable Melita Bryan, Lord Mayor of Nottingham, the Honorable Lillian Greenwood, MP of Nottingham, and the Shadow Transport Minister, the Honorable Nicola Heaton, Executive Council Member, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. I want to start by telling you how very humbled I am that this great city in this great land should pause to reflect on Rwanda's terrible tragedy. That you should spend nearly a half day going to church to pray with us, walking the streets of Nottingham, as part of the Walk to Remember exercise, to show to the world that you care, and to spend time this afternoon in this great hall in a conversation aimed at sharing the Rwanda narrative. What you have demonstrated today is that you care, is that you're not indifferent, that you are different from what the world was in 1994. Because in 1994, the world chose indifference. And because of that, it failed to make a positive difference. Today, you demonstrated your compassion and your care. That was not there in 1994. In 1994, the world chose inaction. It chose a dispassionate indifference. And as a result, it created space in which negative forces tore our country apart. And within a span of 100 days, it left us rolling in the blood of our children, of our mothers, of our fathers, of our friends, of our neighbors. 100 days, 1 million people. Not because the world didn't know, not because the world didn't have the capacity to stop it, but because the world did not care. I appreciate the fact that you cared today to pause and to reflect. 100 days and 500,000 women raped because the world did not care. Rwanda appreciates that Nottingham cared today to pause and reflect. 100 days in 1994 and 250 orphans left through the brutality that was meted out against the Tutsis in Rwanda. Orphans who could have been saved from the indignity of a life without parents if the world had cared. It didn't. And I'm humbled that Nottingham cared today to pause and to remember that 250 children were rendered parentless, not only because of the brutality of those that perpetrated the killings, but because of the indifference of that watched while this was going on. A wise man once said that the world does not suffer because of the actions of bad people. It suffers because of the inaction of good people, because of the silence of good people. Within 100 days, there were 20,000 children that were to be born out of the rapes that happened during those 100 days, infected with AIDS because the perpetrators of the genocide deliberately used the rape as a weapon of war. And it could have been stopped if the world had behaved like you behaved today, if the world had cared. We commemorate every year. We've been doing this since 1994 because we want to honor those of our people who perished during the genocide. We also do it to comfort those like Admani, like Samputu, like Beata, and several of you who are here are survivors of the genocide. But we also do it to recommit ourselves that we can be better people, that we can craft a conversation that enables us to build a society that is more inclusive, that respects human life, and that creates space for all Rwanda's children to thrive together, not to perish at the hands of each other. It is possible. The best way for us as Rwandese and friends of Rwanda to honor those that perished during the genocide and to comfort those that survived but still carry the scars of this terrible pogrom is to ensure that we can live a better life by doing the three important things that our president talked about on the 7th of April when he was addressing people in Kigali during the 20th commemoration of the 1994 genocide against the Tutsis. If we can learn and accept to be together, if we can embrace the choice of being accountable to each other and of thinking big, being able to dig deep inside ourselves and find the courage and the energy and the wisdom to lift ourselves from the abyss that the genocide plunged us into is something that requires significant courage. It is something that requires the human capacity for thinking big. The president said in his speech at the time that while the genocide demonstrated the capacity of human cruelty, our ability to rebuild, to heal, and to rebuild reflected the greater capacity of the human spirit, the magnanimity of the human spirit, the courage of man at his best. So, as we pause today, and as we remember, and as we recommit ourselves to move forward, I want us to be able to do it with a strong conviction that it is possible to create a better Rwanda, in which never again is actually true. And the journey that we have had over the last 20 years, like everybody said, like Lillian said, and like the mayor said in her speech, Rwanda has had a phenomenal journey that allows us to stand today on the threshold of the third decade of Rwanda's post-genocide existence with a greater sense of hope. In 1994, Rwanda was a basket case. Nobody believed that it would ever rise again as a society, as a nation. 20 years today, it is humbling yet so pleasing to be able to stand in front of you and say, without fear of correction, that Rwanda has become a model state on the African continent. Whether it is in terms of women empowerment, the country whose men were cutting the wombs of mothers in 1994 has now turned mothers into equal partners in national life. 64% of our parliament is controlled by women. 50% of our technical offices are controlled by women. 45% of our SMEs in the country are controlled by women. 40% of our judicial system is run by women. We have more girl children in school than boys for the first time in our history. 98% of all school-going girls are in school. And by the way, they're doing better in science than boys. But this is not happening as an accident. It is all happening because there is a deliberate choice by the Rwandese people, by the Rwandese leadership, particularly by President Paul Kagame, to ensure that every Rwandan, irrespective of gender, irrespective of religious persuasion, irrespective of political persuasion, has the same access to opportunity in our land. Small as it is, beautiful as it mesmerizes, there is greater possibility in this country. We have come very far. Over the last 15 years, our economy has expanded about 600%. It's been growing at about 8% every year for the last decade. Between 2005 and 2010, we're able to thrash our poverty levels by about 12.5%, the highest rate of poverty reduction in human history. But we still have over 40% of our people living under the poverty line. It means there is more work to do. We still have victims of genocide still dealing with their trauma. They still need support. There is more work to do. We need to expand our capacity of our economy to ensure that it provides opportunity for everyone and child. That is why within our Vision 2020, we say we want to become a middle-income economy by 2020. 14 years down the line, we believe that we are on course to meet the target. And the best example of that is, for example, the fact that we are perhaps one of the few countries on the continent that is on target to meet most of the the Millennium Development Goals, whether it is in terms of access to universal education, in terms of child mortality, in terms of maternal mortality, in terms of poverty reduction, and so on. We are on course. We think it is possible. There is a lot of work to be done. And it is because we have had this phenomenal journey that has actually demonstrated that the improbable is probable. if people think right and act right, that we think that as we move into the third decade after the genocide, that we believe that it is possible to actually accomplish what the Rwandans deserve. They deserve a country united, in which all its children are equal, and in which prosperity is shared. We think it is possible. But it means it's more work to be done. But we believe that if we continue to educate our children, to provide them with the best health care, to invest in the expansion of our economy, and building democratic institutions, and ensuring that our development is inclusive, then the opportunity for us to ever descend into hell like we did in 1994 is not going to happen. And we believe that we have the right policies, the right leadership in place to ensure that this journey is carried forth and delivers a stabler, more successful society for Rwandese. But that does not mean, like those who spoke before me said, that does not mean that there are no negative elements eager to derail the train. The same negative forces that orchestrated the genocide in 1994, many of those are still alive. Some of them actually could be here in Nottingham or in other cities in UK. Acting like all is well. I came here, my wife Leonia is seated here, I go with her wherever I go, perhaps because I don't think I'm safe by myself. But yesterday, we were in Liverpool to attend a similar function. And after the function, as we were seated talking with people, one of the person actually who had come to commemorate ventured to say, but you know what? It is okay to commemorate. It is okay to forgive. But I think we also need to try and forget. Everybody was shocked. Forget what? Forget that 1 million people died. Forget that 500,000 women were raped. Forget that 250 children were rendered orphans. Forget that 20,000 children were victims of AIDS, engineered deliberately by a brutality of man who used rape of sick men as a weapon of war. Forget what? Like Lillian said in her speech, if we forget the genesis of these tragedies, we face the danger of the tragedies repeating themselves. That is why Irina tells you that 99 years ago, a genocide was committed. But we are still talking about genocide today. Why? Because we have failed to learn from history. Because often it is easier to forget. Because to remember implies a responsibility. To remember requires that you stop being indifferent. That you engage to ensure that the forces that come to play, the forces of hate or bad politics or prejudice, are not allowed place to grow. If you forget, that is what happens. The same seeds that ferment and lead to genocide are encouraged to grow. And therefore, we can't afford to forget. But we also need to do a lot more, to exercise greater responsibility. Because on the 12th in Birmingham, we had an event like this, where we had about 700 people. It was a big event, 700 people, Rwandese and friends of Rwanda. Many of you from the UK were there. But as we were having that event, on that day, commemorating this terrible tragedy, in Leeds, a small group of Rwandese and their friends, Rwandese of negative persuasion, were organizing another event to commemorate something that is not about the genocide against the Tutsis. How those people got into the UK and were given space to engage in actions that amount to dancing on the graves of the children and the mothers who perished in London, rather in Rwanda, I don't know. But you have these negative forces who we believe must have been part of the genocide campaign, that are engaged in acts of denial, because those who have studied genocide will tell you that denial is the last phase of genocide. It is not just an accidental twist of mind. It is a part of a process driven by the same people. So we shouldn't only forget what happened, but we should also be cautious of what it is that is going on in our communities. Surely the Rwandese will stand and say, we cannot commemorate the genocide against the Tutsis that happened in Rwanda in 1994, but we want to commemorate, the life of anybody who may have died, not only in Rwanda, but also in Burundi and Congo and everywhere. Be careful. Those are not good people. Those are part of the disease. Allowing them to thrive is to fail in our responsibility. Is to fail to honor those who died. Is to betray those who survived and need our comfort. And it is to steal the future of our children, which must be built on truth and forgiveness and a willingness to heal our community and build a better world for all our children. So here in UK and around the world, when we commemorate, we just don't want to remember or to comfort those who died. We also hope that you can join us in adding your voice to ours, a voice that calls for a global response against every manifestation of genocide, wherever it may occur. With your hearts and with your feet, Nottingham, you've walked that journey. You've demonstrated your compassion and your care. And through your leaders, you have added your voice to our call for a global response against genocide. And we thank you for that.